Hey, this is Ryan Jones with serverlessguru. In this video, we're going to be covering Firebase Auth. So this authentication service provided by Firebase and provided by the Google Cloud allows you to do really cool stuff with only a couple of lines of code. So what we're going to do is look at the documentation, get an idea for kind of where the similarities lie with what we're already familiar with, and then move on from there. So let's jump into it. So Firebase Authentication. It's simple, free, multi-platform sign-in, as it says. As we can see from the picture here, Google, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, your own login, or logging in through phone numbers, things like that. All of it's kind of supported with Firebase Auth. So you can kind of immediately start using these different platforms to allow users to sign in. And it provides an end-to-end identity solution supporting email, password accounts, and as we just covered, all the different providers there. And so that's super awesome, and it allows you to do very powerful stuff. One big thing is that it will maximize sign-in and sign-up conversion for your app, right? So giving the users the different options to sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, it allows them to use logins that they're already familiar with. That way, it kind of lowers this scare factor to your app. They don't know if you're handling their password correctly. They do know that Google and they do know that Facebook are handling your password and your information correctly. It also helps that in a lot of different situations, you may already be logged into Google, right? So you may be in Google Chrome, or you may be on an Android device, and when you kind of hit that button and it automatically logs you in, you can feel secure knowing that you didn't just give your password to some random app, right? So that's awesome. Also, the Firebase UI, it provides a custom open source drop-in auth solution. That means that when someone's using the app, they can hit the sign in with Google button, and it has its own UI that'll kind of work into your app. That'll look good, right? So that's very important. And then there's also comprehensive security. So because Google manages Google accounts for all around the world, they're a global company. They have the biggest, as I think it says here, is they have Google's internal expertise of managing one of the largest account databases in the world, right? So they have one of the largest account databases in the world, and they have to know how to manage that and how to fix issues with it. And so they can kind of take that expertise, they package it up into a service called Firebase Authentication, and then you can kind of tap into that without having to understand all the underlying complexities. And so some of the stuff that they have there, as we can read it, is they have Google Sign-In, they have Smart Lock, they have Chrome Password Manager, and they also have Firebase built-in security based on Google's account database. So moving forward, we have fast implementation as well. So imagine you were going to set all this up from scratch, right? Imagine you were going to roll your own authentication service, right? It's not something you can do overnight. Even with a fully managed service, it still takes time. One thing that I've been working on in my own project is using Cognito authentication to handle web applications, sign in, sign out, mixed in with a GraphQL endpoint, right? And so the complexities kind of run a little bit deep, plus you have to secure down your application. And before long, it's a kind of a lot to keep in your head, right? So that's even using a managed service like Cognito. What I like about Firebase Authentication is that you can kind of do similar to what Cognito can do without having to install these additional libraries. Because the Firebase SDK wraps around it, you can use this authentication in, as it says, under 10 lines of code, right? So that's really powerful. And currently with Cognito, what I've noticed is that when I'm using, say, like a React.js app, I'm actually having to install their library called AWS Amplify, and AWS Amplify then it gives you access to do authentication a bit smoother, and that's great, and that's a great step in the right direction. I do like, however, that Firebase has this built in, so it's basically reusing the knowledge that you already have, the same patterns that you already know, without having to learn an additional aspect, right? So very cool. And one last thing is that it even handles things like complex account merging, right? So that's just another example of Google kind of taking this complexity away from the individual developer and not having to reinvent the wheel across your organization. So if every organization is spending 2 months building out their authentication, and at some point the people on the team understand that authentication. If everybody's having to do it, and then let's say your startup, so company A, B, and C are all working on that. You use something like Firebase Authentication. You get up and running in a couple days, integrated across your entire site in a couple days versus a couple months. And then you can start working on your core functionality a lot faster. And that increases your time to market. It lowers the overhead in the future. And you can save a lot more money that way, not just based on the fact that it's simple and free, but the fact that you don't have to pay developers to do the maintaining and also the building out. You can get them to do the stuff that's more important to your consumers. So yeah, that wraps up this video. This was Ryan Jones with Serverless Guru. Thanks for watching. Bye.